If you are truly unfortunate, if the moon and the stars and the wind are just right, if the doors between worlds gape wide, you may find yourself inside the lair of the Bramble Queen. Anonymous. Welcome, humble adventurers, to my realm of knowledge and mystery. Here, in my cursed library, are endless tomes and scrolls on the darkest and evilest foes in all the realms, be they from Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, the many worlds of darkness, or any realm in between. Welcome to the Dastardly Decimal System. I'm your caretaker of the corrupt, the librarian, Castor Cain, and supervising as always is Vega the cat. Love is a beautiful thing. It can motivate us, empower us, and push us to limits beyond what we once thought possible. The feeling of being loved is unlike any other. I get that feeling every time Vega shows me his love for me. Meow. But what happens when that feeling is taken away? What happens when love suddenly vanishes? What happens if the level of love you feel for someone isn't given back in kind? For today's topic, I have brewed a pot of Motherwort Tea. This is a great remedy for a racing heart caused by heartbreak or emotional turmoil. So why don't you take a seat, have a cup, and join Vega and I as we talk about Selephra The Bramble Queen. For most that see her, Selephra is an Eladrin woman with vibrant wine-colored hair, alabaster skin, and she wears a gorgeous array of green and gold fabrics to make up her elegant gowns. Those that can pierce the veil of her illusion, however, see the truth that lies beneath. Her body is riddled with brambles and thorn-covered vines. They protrude from the flesh of her back and feet, trailing behind her in the dust or even centrally sliding across nearby trees or hedges. Her nails and teeth are jagged bark, and her eyes ooze sap like constant tears. Unlike other Fae, the Bramble Queen has no ability to charm or dominate. Those abilities were lost to her with her broken heart. That being said, her power and aura are intoxicating. Fae, warlocks, hags, and treants, just to name a few, flock to her, eager to submit. Selephra can speak with any plant creature, plant, or mundane animal. She has no direct control over these creatures, but they still tend to become loyal and protective of her, even if it contradicts their normal behavior or alignment. The Bramble Queen seeks to wreak vengeance on the mortal world, either by directly hunting them or by destroying famous heroes and beloved leaders by making them suffer through the pain and grief of unendurable loss. The Bramble Queen never travels alone. She always has a handful of vassals by her side. This means that during battle, she never fights alone. In combat, Selephra uses her vines to raise her high above her foes and to move across the battlefield. The Bramble Queen prefers to remain in motion, keeping distance between her and her foes, lashing out at them with her briars and vines. If inflicted with a harmful condition, like poison or paralysis, Selephra can switch bodies with that of a plant ally. She'll transform the new plant body into one of her own, and her former self will keep the harmful conditions, leaving her restored and furious. The Fae are a mysterious lot. They are beings of mystery and dreams, emotion and symbolism. They are whimsical beings who act on their own impulsive fancy. This definition is never more accurate than when talking about Selephra. She was the daughter of Oran, the Lord of the Green Fae. She was a flighty creature, joyful and impetuous. Despite having great sway in the Green Court, she rarely exercised that power. Instead, she explored the wilds, living the harmless life as a pampered noble's daughter. She was a spoiled princess with people dropping whatever they were doing to meet her whims. But despite all of her flaws, she was never a malevolent soul. Things changed when she met Torhivel. He was a half Eladrin and half human hybrid. He had a rigid sense of honor and was dedicated to his duty and his people. Torhivel was eager to spend time with the Fey princess, but he was not going to schedule his life and tasks around her impulsive whims. Selephra had been with numerous men, but unlike others, she found herself completely drawn to him. Perhaps it was his firm sense of honor. Perhaps it was his kindness. Perhaps it was due to him being the first to not put up with her shit. Regardless, her desire for him grew into love and prompted her to change. Suddenly, the spoiled princess began to mature, much to Oran's delight. She took on a more active role in the Green Court, and for decades, she and Torhivel lived together, loved together, rode together, and ruled together. All that changed, however, when war came to the Feywilds. When the might of Fomorian-led witches began to assault the mortal realms, legion of Eladrin and Fae mobilized to stop them. Torhivel prepared to lead a brigade into battle. Selephra desperately wanted to fight by his side, but her father would not allow it. Left with no other option, she stood at the very edge of her wooded lands and watched as Torhivel rode off in the distance, resplendent in his gleaming armor, proudly mounted atop of his snow-white warhorse. While Torhivel was gone, she would spend her days in the courts of the Fae or frolicking in the forest, but at the end of each day, she would return to the forest's edge, stand in that very spot, and watched for his eventual return. When the war ended, soldiers began to trickle back. It started out as a little bit, but eventually more and more began to return. Each spoke of the horrors they saw, the dark magic they fought against, and the vile curses they battled. But Torhivel never returned. As the prisoners of war were released, more Eladrin returned home to their kings and their loved ones. Looks of joy filled the court as lovers were reunited. But Torhivel never returned. Each day, Selephra spent more and more time at that spot, waiting for her love to return. She ignored her duties and her friends. She simply spent endless hours, watching and waiting for her love's return. But Torhivel never returned. Selephra vowed not to move from that spot until Torhivel stood before her. For years she kept that vow, not moving even as the branches and roots began to wrap around her body and fuse with her. Her skin became bark, her bones became branches, and her heart filled with thorns. She heard the voices of the animals and the whispers of the leaves, and came to understand both. Soon, it was impossible to tell where nature ended and where Selephra began. But Torhival never returned. Enkaros was a satyr, a spy master, and a chief advisor to Lord Oran. Through his dealings, he had begun to hear rumors. They spoke of a mortal sorceress, one that had aligned with the Fomorians during the war, who now held a Fey general within her castle. Could this be Torhival? Hoping this rumor may help Selephra, he told her of the rumors and offered to take her to the castle. Roots and ivy tore from the ground as Selephra stood. Her unsteady feet were supported by vines and thorns. It had been decades since she had moved, since she had called upon any of her Fey power. But as she stepped into the mortal realms, it all began to resurface. Dozens of Fey flocked to her as she tapped into a well of power she had not touched in years. She tore through the sorceress's castle, toppling walls, obliterating entire towers, and slaughtering regiments that dared to stand in her way. She faced the sorceress one-on-one and slew the caster with her own hands. There, in the highest tower, in an unlocked room, she found Torhival. He had aged, a thing souls tend to do in the mortal realm, but he was still unmistakable. After decades, Selephra had been reunited with her one true love. As she approached him, Torhival's eyes went wide as he eventually recognized her. Then, he recoiled in fear and disgust. Who was this woman before him? Who was this hideous form? Who was this monster? Surely it was not his beloved. In Selephra's mind, she had returned from the dead to save her one true love, and now he shunned her. She had been suffering for decades. Did he not owe her some penitence? Her fury was boundless. Who did this man think he was? Her lover was a warrior. He would have fought legions of puny mortals simply to return to her. Worst of all, this unlocked room wasn't a prison. It was a bedchamber. When Selephra withdrew from the castle, no wall stood upright, and no tower stood higher than a pile of rubble. No soul was left alive either. There was only split stone and broken corpses. The Bramble Queen was now guided by hatred and bitterness. She had a vendetta against mortals, especially men, and wished to torment and destroy them. Many Fey became dark and spiteful under her command. The Bramble Queen had become a creature of hate and malice, and all creatures would suffer because of it. She is worshipped by dryads, hags, lamias, and plant creatures. She is a patron to love-spurned women wishing to become warlocks, and asks little of them except to follow her nature and entice mortals to emotional slavery or death. Now, as a prominent member in the Court of Stars, the Bramble Queen seeks to expand her power and authority within the court. Selephra pushes the Fey court to go to war. She uses manipulation, old grudges, and even the mighty pride of each Fey to turn the otherwise reasonable, peaceful Fey against the mortal races. To paraphrase a popular saying, the nine hells has no fury like a Fey princess scorned. And sadly, we may all suffer because of it. It seems that our tea has run out, which means so too has our time. I hope this aids in your travels, adventurer. Join me again in my libraries for more stories and lore about the darkest creatures from the darkest realms. This has been the Dastardly Decimal System, and I am your librarian, Castor Cain, and with me as always is Vega. Do you love the Dastardly Decimal System and want to support us? Check out our new Patreon. Members will get access to show notes, official artwork, our new bonus episode series called Cleaning Up After Tea Time, and of course, plenty of cat pics of Vega voice actors Vash and Zid. You'll even be able to suggest a topic for future episodes. Check it out at patreon.com/Dastardly Decimal System. If you're not financially able and still want to support us, suggest the show to a D&D loving friend. It really helps us get noticed. The Dastardly Decimal System can be found on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Blue Sky at DD System Podcast. That's Delta Delta System Podcast. Drop us a message and say hi. Vega always loves the attention. This podcast was produced by Midnight Reading Audio, a division of Midnight Reading Publishing. The voice of Castor Cain is Larry Gent. The voice of Vega is provided by my cats, Vash and Zid. Music was Balestone by Andreas Wohl from Pixabay, licensed under Creative Commons. The Bramble Queen came from issue 185 of Dungeon Magazine in an article called The Court of the Bramble Queen by Ari Marmel. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.